everyone, my name is Yuliya and you are watching Multicultural's Community Hour. In this segment, we are talking about civic issues in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Today we are going to discuss family violence and how to overcome family violence trauma. For this special episode, I invited Sherrie Winstanley. She is an executive director of Safe Housing and Directed Empowerment. Hello, Sherrie. Thank you for being here with us today.
You're welcome.
Your organization has been helping hundreds of women to recover, to healing for over 10 years. What was the impetus for starting the S.H.A.D.E programming?
I would say the first impetus would be the need. I have worked in the settlement sector prior to starting this charitable nonprofit and realized that a lot of the newcomers, whether they're immigrants or whether they're refugees, just didn't have the go-to places. There are places to go to, but for comprehensive services, they didn't have anywhere to go to. And second, my passion for helping women, because I myself am a survivor of intimate partner violence. So I would say the combination of the need and my passion to make a difference in women's lives.
Can you tell us more about your experience of trauma and when did you realize that you were under control of another person?
Oh, gee. I was in an intimate partner violence for 26 years, so I would say it was pretty close to the beginning, like 3 months into my marriage. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the cycle of violence. You always want to make the best of things, and sometimes things creep up on you, so you're not really aware that it's happening. You go, oh, there's a question mark. This doesn't seem quite right. And communication is super important, so you try and communicate, but there's a huge difference in belief systems between the belief system of an abuser and the belief system of somebody who wants a relationship. So over time, I realized that, and in the cycle of violence, it's been recorded that many people will return because they want things to work out. You invest time and energy into a relationship, you don't want to see it all fall apart. So, yeah, I stuck way too long, but I have 4 amazing kids. So I think, it's just a matter of realizing things aren't going to change and you need to move on with your life.
What is your personal definition of family violence?
Domestic abuse goes by many names. It goes by domestic abuse, domestic violence, gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and then there is also family violence. It involves those people living together in a relationship, and it is one person using their power over another person, usually in a weakened state. They could be marginalized or they could be somebody who's been sponsored by somebody that knows more about what's happening in the country that they're now living in. But it always involves power and control over another person. Abuse is always more common when there is another person that is viewed as weaker, or you can take advantage of what they don't know or what they might not know where to reach out to. But it always makes a person feel fearful, insecure, and loss of confidence will always ensue.
Domestic violence survivors face ongoing challenging effects after enduring physical, mental, and emotional abuse. What programs S.H.A.D.E have to help women?
Well, we have 3 programs. The first program is called Directed Empowerment, which is a part of our signature name, S.H.A.D.E, Safe Housing and Directed Empowerment. And that is the one-on-one support. So in one-on-one support, and we have flyers to be able to promote what we do. But in one-on-one support, we help women tap into any financial benefits that they may need and are eligible for. We help women with all the legal aspects, so providing legal information. We're not lawyers, but we work with lawyers. We support them. We accompany them to legal appointments, to the court, We review documents to make sure that she is understanding what is being said, because a lot of times they don't know what their rights or they don't know the processes in the Canadian law system. We help women to figure out childminding. We help women with transportation to medical appointments, or we also help women to tap into getting their credentials recognized here in Canada if they want to continue to practice, whether it's nursing or pharmacy or dentistry. And if they need to change their career, to be able to tap into the financial resources through Manitoba Jobs and Skills Department or Manitoba Student Loans, to write resumes for them and get back into so that they can become more financially independent. So that's our first program. Our key community program is called Mirrors, a reflection of immigrant women building healthy relationships. So we are in our 6th session of 12 weeks right now. We've got 9 women attending, and they're from different countries. And Mirrors is specifically focused on building their knowledge on intimate partner violence and ensuring that they're not blaming themselves anymore, to take away the shame, to give them a voice when they never had a voice before, and to also realize they're not the only ones, that there's other people from their ethnic community, there's other people from other communities. Domestic violence spans all sorts of things, like it's not a respecter of ethnicity, language group, socioeconomic class. It's everywhere in the world. And so when they look around the room, I've had women say, "Are these all women in this room experience domestic violence?" I go, "Yep." And they're going, "I didn't know. I thought I was all alone." And so you see, after several weeks in the Mirrors program, they start to open up and share parts of their stories, and they start to build friendships with one another. And so I think Mirrors is an amazing program. And we have seen that women that stay with the whole 12 weeks, their confidence level just soars by the end of 3 months spent together. Whereas women that drop out, or for whatever reason, they may say that they're going to come, but then they don't. We see a difference that they are not as far ahead as we had hoped that they would be. So, different timings for different people. And then we have an outgrowth community program called Embrace that our Mirrors graduates have asked for, specifically to deal with other areas of their lives that they still want support for. So parenting support, how to deal with overwhelming stress and anxiety, especially when they're going through the court system, to have some just fun activities with their kids, because they're so involved in what's happening to them that sometimes the kids get neglected. And I don't mean in a bad way, it's just that they're so overwhelmed with trying to figure out what's happening to them that they're consumed with that, and they need time to have fun instead of the kids witnessing that mom is still sad and mom is still stressed. And so we do that. We're having a huge outing on December 30th to Miracle Ranch. So we're going for a sleigh ride, bonfire, pony rides, cookie decorating. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so we've got 50 people signed up for that. And we're really looking forward to that. And other things, like if you only have a cell phone and you're trying to manage your life with doctor's appointments, things for the kids' school or your own schooling, legal appointments, it can get really overcrowded, and you might miss things that were really important dates. And so we've done how to use your cell phone to manage and keep your life organized. We've had the Winnipeg Police Service come and do a couple of programs on fraud and scams so that they can stay safe. We've done cold weather, protection, warm weather, how to keep safe in the hot weather. So we do a lot of different kinds of programs for them.
How much domestic is there in Winnipeg?
Well, Winnipeg is a really multicultural center. We're central Canada. And so my last statistic says that it's happening more in Winnipeg than in other parts of the country, although it is prevalent everywhere. Like I would never want to say it's not prevalent anywhere. It's prevalent in the major cities. It's prevalent, in the rural parts of the provinces. It's not a good situation. And COVID-19 and the lockdown made it even more severe for women when home is supposed to be a safe place for you. It isn't always. So.
And how many women reach you during the year? Has the number increased or decreased during the last year?
It's increased.
Yeah.
Yes. Word of mouth, of course, from people that we've helped. We have referrals for both of our programs from word of mouth. We have referrals from Child and Family Services, from some of the settlement organizations in the city, even from the Winnipeg Police when they go to a 911 call. If it's an immigrant or a refugee, they will refer to S.H.A.D.E.
For many people, it might not be easier to identify domestic violence at first. What are the 3 main warning signs that someone may be an abuser?
Maybe an abuser. So, it's really hard to identify somebody just by looking at them that they may be an abuser, because I think everyone knows we present ourselves in a certain way in public. So I call that our public persona. But what we're like behind closed doors may be completely different, and that's our private persona. So you can't always identify an abuser just by looking at them or by how they behave in public. It's going to be more what a woman, a victim of abuse, would tell you. And a lot of times you might be able to identify it whether she's being isolated. So if she used to go out a lot, and then all of a sudden she's making excuses that she can't go out anymore, she can't go out with her best friends, she can't even make phone calls to her family members anymore, it means she's being isolated. And there's a reason, because he doesn't want her to have her support system anymore. That's a huge way to find out if a woman's being abused, is if her world starts to shrink and she cannot participate in the normal social support systems that she would have had before. If there's so many signs, there's signs that we see, there's signs that we hear from a woman, and I say woman recognizing the fact that men can be abused too. Youth can be abused, elderly people can be abused, but the majority of times it is women, 81% of women, when we're talking about an intimate partner violent relationship.
Is there an average age of women who are facing with abuse?
Well, I would say, their 20s and 30s quite often, but I have women in their 50s. It really isn't a respecter of age.
So it doesn't depend from age?
No, it doesn't. Oftentimes, abuse may start when a woman becomes pregnant. So, we're talking childbearing years.
How important for you as a woman who got out of abuse cycle to help other women?
Oh, come on. It's super important. I am passionate about making a difference, because when you can make a difference to a woman who's been in an abusive situation, especially a mom, you're impacting generations to come, because the children, they're not just child witnesses, they're child victims as well. And as we all know, children are like little sponges, and they soak up what they hear and what they see, and they will emulate, relationships. So, if it's a girl and she sees mom accepting the abuse for years and years and years, she's going, okay, that's normal. That's what I should expect in a relationship. When it's not, mom is just not having the right resources and supports to tap into. Or if it's a young boy, then he's going, oh, okay, this is how men can treat women, and it's okay. It's socially acceptable. And so education is a huge part of trying to change this.
And how do you think, does the public educated enough of domestic abuse, or there is still much learning on this particular topic?
There will always be learning on this topic. Always, always, always. Education, because education is not just happening in the schools or the universities. Education happens, for judges and lawyers. It happens for justice of the peace. It happens for the police. Even police in the domestic violence unit still need to be educated on this topic. It happens, in the workplace. Employers need to understand when one of their employees is in an abusive relationship so that the person isn't penalized for absenteeism, isn't penalized that they're not fully alert when they're even present. There's a huge piece of education that needs to take place.
How does S.H.A.D.E help to increase awareness of domestic violence?
Well, we're in the community, and our two programs are community programs, and we constantly are building relationships with community stakeholders to let them know. So whether it's the settlement sector, or whether it's child and family services, continued communication with the Winnipeg Police Service. I can't think of everyone, but businesses even. People are wanting to make a difference, and businesses now have something called social responsibility because they realize that people want to make a difference in other people's lives. So Shoppers Drug Mart makes a difference, Winners makes a difference, Royal Bank makes a difference. All of these people want to see that our community is strong. So,
do you think that society becomes more safer for women?
Well, I still think we have a long way to go. Our society is still very much patriarchal, where men tend to think that they are more entitled to be leaders in the community and make the final decisions. And I think that there's still a lot of education work to make society more safer for women.
If I am a victim of domestic violence, where should I go? Who can help me? And what would be my first step toward healing?
If you're a victim of domestic violence, I guess you can reach out to 911. It depends on the urgency of the situation, but you can reach out to a shelter. So a shelter is usually only for 30 days. So Willow Place is our key one, and for First Nations women, Iquiwadijuan in the city of Winnipeg. Then there's something called second stage housing, which is longer term. So there are referrals made from the shelters to second stage housing. So that would be Bravestone Center, it would be Alpha House, and it would be Chez Rachel in the city. It would also be just outside the city to a number of the rural ones, like Nova House is just in Selkirk. So they take overflow from here. So does Prairie Harbor and Portage la Prairie. So it really depends, where they are. And also certain charitable nonprofits that are working in this sector, helping women, victims of domestic violence, may have part of their mission is to serve a certain demographic. So S.H.A.D.E, our specific target that we focus on is our immigrant and refugee newcomers. So we don't service First Nations women, although I get calls from First Nations women and I redirect them. You can call this place, this place, this place. I have a list of emergency places that people can phone all over the province. I wanted to say also that not all women need the safe housing piece. They may just need the support. counseling support, knowing that they're not alone in this journey. And that's why the Mirrors program is a really good fit for a lot of women. We have women that are economically sufficient, they're just super alone and wanting to connect with somebody else because they don't feel that their voice is being heard.
You mentioned before that your program helps to boost women's confidence. How confidence can increase the getting out of violence?
Well, when you've been decimated verbally by being told that you're no good, by body shaming, by being told that you're not a good mom, by being told that you're stupid, any number of things to decrease your confidence level, in time, you start to internalize those messages, and that's where your identity starts to really plummet. And so when you begin to realize, okay, I'm not responsible for the abuse that happened against me, which you've been told, I should not feel any shame because I didn't do anything wrong. The only thing is that, maybe you didn't have the tools or the knowledge to know where to reach out to. Then I think the confidence comes from being together in a group that's learning about intimate partner violence. It comes from building a therapeutic relationship with somebody who is knowledgeable and trauma informed about intimate partner violence, and somebody that can point you to other resources and services and say, okay, I know a really good family law lawyer that will help us together. You don't have to do this journey alone for this part of or this season in your life. You're not alone anymore. And that is huge. When you realize that you're not alone, you begin to have the ability to pay attention, because you can't even pay attention when your anxiety level is, out off the rooftop. That's a part of being trauma informed, is understanding that you're either in fight, flight, freeze, or please and appease mode. And you need to have your rational brain working in order to make the best decisions possible for you and your children. And you can't do that when you're highly agitated. You need to be able to settle. And how you can settle is by feeling trust with another person. And so having good professional people working with you, walking alongside you, and then realizing that you're not alone. There are other people that you can connect to and feel safe. So our Mirrors, we offer security and safety in a culturally safe space where they're talking about what's happened to them and learning as well.
Why do you think people stay in a violence relationship for so long? How to break the cycle?
That's, a lot of people who maybe not experienced intimate partner violence will say, well, why are you staying? Like, it must not be so bad, and, try and minimize it. It's a lot more complicated than that. The women know all the little innuendos that go towards, when that person is coming out of the apology phase and tension is starting to build before there's another explosion, before there's a denial, and we go back into that cycle. They're always weighing, cons and pros. Should I leave? Shouldn't I leave? If I leave now, well, it's the middle of the winter. Where am I going to go that's going to be good for my children? So sometimes women put up with a lot of abuse because they want their children to have a warm place to live. There's sacrifices that are made. Women will put up with a lot, hoping that their abuser will change. It's a very, very complex situation. You just don't say, well, just turn around and walk the other way. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Based on your experience, what would be your advice to women who face violence relationship?
Hang in there. There is hope, and there are resources and caring people in the city of Winnipeg and elsewhere in Canada that you can tap into. You just have to find them.
Let's move to my last question. Can you share with us what was your path to healing, improving your mental health and well-being after trauma?
Okay. When I finally realized that my husband wasn't going to change, or at least not while we were together, and I have 4 children who are now all young adults, I had to make the tough decision to get in touch with a lawyer. And I had a wonderful lawyer. She wasn't always my lawyer because she had to move out of the city, but I connected with a great lawyer to start with, and I also connected with a trauma counselor at clinic here in the city, and I'm telling you, we connected so well. And she would come with me to the law court, and even if she wasn't allowed in the room, she would stay out on the bench and wait for me, and we would go out afterwards and debrief. And it was just that connection with another human being that got me, that really made a difference, and my faith in God. So at one point, my faith in God was like almost snapped because it wasn't just intimate partner violence. I experienced pastoral violence too. And so I lost my first child because of that. So I haven't seen my oldest son for 18 years. And I regret that. But it was because of a pastor coming into the house and kicking my oldest son out when he should have kicked my husband out of the house. And so, a lot of soul searching, a lot of going back and searching scripture, because I am a Christian, and searching and going, I don't know why the church teaches this, but the church doesn't understand intimate partner violence. And especially male pastors don't understand it. And every church, every faith-based place, whether you're at a Gurdwara, a Sikh, like if you're in a mosque, wherever you are, those faith leaders need to understand intimate partner violence, and they need to put policies in place to help members of their own congregation to help the victims, not to minimize it and say, oh, you need to stay with your husband, and all these patriarchal things, like a man needs a woman in bed with them. Like, seriously, that happened to my girlfriend, and her faith almost was lost too. So it was a lot of soul searching and going back and realizing, no, God never intended for a woman to stay in an abusive relationship. Jesus isn't abusive. For crying out loud, this is wrong. Why have I been taught all this? And so, I started to look at what was really meant by scripture and read the original Greek or the Hebrew and understand more. Why have we been duped? And so my faith kind of revolutionized. And I think it's just slowly but surely over time, with the support that I received, and I'm also extremely close with my youngest sister, who also was a victim of intimate partner violence. So we're pretty close.
You've written a book.
I have. Yes.
Can you share with us?
I can. So, people manage, what they're going through in different ways. And one of the ways that I coped, I guess you could say, because it was for so long, was I would write. And the way it would come out would be in poetry. I didn't plan it that way. I never said, today I'm going to write a poem about, this part of intimate partner violence. I just needed to grab a piece of paper and a pen and start writing what was going on as just an outlet. And I would just crumple those papers up and hide them in socks, in bras, in underwear, in pajamas. And it's a miracle that my husband never found them, but he didn't. And then I shared with a really close friend of mine, and she goes, you need to write a book. I said, no. This is just my own therapeutic healing. It's just one of the ways that I've been able to manage and cope. And she goes, no, I'm serious. You really need to write a book. So in November 2018, when my dog bowled me over and broke my right leg, I couldn't go to work for 3 months. And that is actually when I wrote the curriculum for the Mirrors program. And I also, in between writing the curriculum, based on my own lived experience, I also found all those pieces of paper and I went, I wonder if I can put them in some sort of sequential order. And so I did. And I thought, I just don't know. It gets a bit overwhelming and you have to take breaks. When you're going back and you're rereading things that you've experienced, you have to be kind to yourself. But I heard about Friesen Press, where you can self-publish. And I phoned the intake person and she goes, send me a sample or two. So I sent her and she goes, when you have this together, I'm buying this book for my mother. I'm like, okay, weird. But it was over the pandemic that I worked on it, and it got published during the pandemic. So that's why I didn't initially put it in bookstores. It is at Chapters Bookstore at Polo Park right now. But it is on Amazon. So I really want people to understand that, the emotional impact is huge, but that you can overcome. So I wrote it as a way of encouraging women that are still in the thick of it to realize they're not alone. And also even to frontline workers and judges and lawyers, if they would take the time to realize these are real human beings in front of you. They're not just another number that you slug through and, you tick off a box and, yep, finished with that one. We're real human beings with real children in our lives, with real emotional impacts that intimate partner violence has had on our lives. And yet we are awesome warrior women, and we can overcome.
Thank you, Sherrie, for sharing with us your experience. I think with that, we are going to conclude our today's discussion.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, our audience, for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed. If you like the episode, please like, share, and subscribe to see our upcoming episode.